Hey guys, you're here with Two Village Girls. I'm Serena,
And I'm Angela.
and we are here to shed some insight into what it's like working in childcare and being a part of the village. And before we get started on our topic for this week, we actually wanted to jump in with a little about us. Take it away, Angie.
Um, hey guys, a little bit about us. We grew up in Baltimore. I was raised here all my life, and Serena was raised here all her life as well.
Yep.
She lived in other states, but she's been mostly here.
Yep.
Um, some of our values are family. We value family. We love to be around our family. We love doing things with our family. Both of us have a passion for children. We think
Definitely.
children are the future. We both have experience working with children, but I have more of a family background with working with children. I like working with my nieces and watching them a lot and just spending quality time with them.
Can't forget the
Yeah, and my
godchildren.
godchildren. Yeah, and Serena has more of a more experience in the child care setting.
Yeah, so my experience is more, I've worked in daycares, preschools, and I currently work in a mental health hospital, and I'm making my way into the into the school district that I currently live near. So my experience is quite a wide range from mental health to childcare.
And yeah, so we met each other at the University of Baltimore, and we both got our bachelor's degree in psychology. We both thought that we wanted to have something to do with mental health and children in the future, and we still might, but for right now, we're focusing on more of the educational part and more of the mental part. I have my child care certifications in infants and tots, my preschool certifications, and I'm working on my child development certification right now. And Serena has all of hers, and I'll let her explain that to you guys.
Because of my wide range of experience working in childcare, I've gotten my different developmental certifications as well as working with children with disabilities and basic health and safety working with children. Those certifications have gone a long way in terms of working with children and working with families of children. So my goal is to use those certifications to both help me in career advancements as well as help you as our listeners with um, working with your children. We feel that being a village comes from every background.
The idea of making a podcast came about from just um, trying to figure out what we could do working with children that we have a passion for and make it a hobby, so you can say.
Yeah.
So we decided to think about what are some things that we have experienced and what are some things that we can relate to, and what are some things that we can just help you guys with. And we just love children. We have experience. We have experience working with children. We also have a little knowledge about some developmental and behavioral aspects of children as well. So we would like to share with y'all those things that we have learned with our experiences as well.
And we also think it's important to bring real life into this. We don't want to be a podcast where we're just professionals reading out of a textbook. We want to let you guys know that we are speaking from personal experience in our own childhoods, experience working with your children. We want to bring this whole full circle and let you guys know that we genuinely care about child development, child care, and you guys. We care about you as parents, you as guardians, and we feel like as a village, we all take part in the growth of children and we all should be on the same page.
Which is why village is significant to us, because we feel like we all play a role into the child's life.
Absolutely. That brings us to the first topic of our series, which is honest conversations about child abuse and neglect. We wanted to start the topic off by giving you guys some general definitions of what we are considering child abuse and child neglect. And to do that, we chose the definitions from the Webster Dictionary. So the Webster Dictionary defines child abuse as the physical, emotional, or sexual mistreatment of children. And they define child neglect as the failure of caretakers to provide adequate emotional and physical care for a child. So, Angie, let's jump right in.
We're going to talk about some warning signs of abuse and neglect, and some warning signs that you guys could look out for is bruises and marks. If children are a little more timid than usual, they don't like to speak up and stuff and participate.
We have typical aversions to certain people. So if you see your child doesn't want to go next to a relative or a family friend or a teacher, their withdrawal from from those people, and then there's withdrawal from basic activities that they normally would enjoy, but suddenly they're not interested.
Another sign could be them being a little, over affectionate, touchy.
Yep, absolutely.
Sometimes, if they have experienced that abuse, they would, portray it in that way as touching and feeling on other people.
Sensitivity.
Oh, yeah.
Sensitivity can be a big warning sign for abuse or neglect, because that shows that they are putting some form of power into other people that are supposed to be seen as their caregivers, caretakers, or people that they should be able to trust. So when you tell a child, hey, this is not okay, and they become completely emotional and break down, and it may seem like a lighthearted, no, not right now, but for them it comes off as a really harsh judgment on them and that they've done something completely wrong. That can be a sign of emotional abuse or neglect.
Some other signs of neglect you could say every day kids could come in to your center or whatever, and their hygiene isn't intact. Like they come to with the same clothes every day, or just looks like they didn't have a bath in a few days, or they're just extra hungry, crave attention. Kids can definitely crave attention if they aren't getting enough at home from their parents or guardian.
This is also where you see your most troubling behaviors. We'll see those most troubling behaviors in children who tend to not get as much attention at home, because
they tend to act out just to get that attention. Because if you don't give them the attention when they're doing positive things, they will find anything to do to get your attention.
Other signs that we typically see from the teacher side or child care provider side are missing students. If students don't come to school as often, their attire, they come in with shorts in the winter and no coat, or maybe you'll see they come in with the proper clothes, but they come in smelling like cigarettes and alcohol.
Yeah, and you can smell it on them. So it's just a sign that parents aren't putting them in the right environment that children need at that age. That can affect them in various ways, mentally, physically, and emotionally.
I think it's important to touch on the subject of the parents' role in all of this. Parents, this is not all on you. And it comes from both the parents, guardians, caretakers, caregivers. Anybody can put strain on the child and the child's development. And it's important to know your warning signs when you are becoming overwhelmed and stressed out, because we all know, we've all been there, where our child is just asked one too many times, "Are we there yet?" Or asked one too many times for that certain snack, or that bag of chips that you send them to school with, or that
front house that they can go around.
yeah.
Like, or they aren't like open with you. Like, parents need to create a space where children can or feel comfortable coming to talk to you when they are, if something does happen. So parents need to make their child feel safe enough to, if something was to happen, to come and talk to their mommy or come talk to their daddy about what happened.
Mm-hmm. With those definitions in mind, we are going to start this chapter off by giving some broad work on the different abuses and neglect. And we'll be breaking down, for the future chapters that we do, we'll be breaking the topics down. And in this case, we'll be breaking down the topics, and we'll have a chapter on physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, and neglect. We do also feel that these are topics that need to be discussed in the field of childcare and parenting, because we all want to ensure the safety of our children. And I say our children because we believe, me and Angie believe, that we are a village. And if they're your children and then they come to me, then they're my children as well. And all children should be treated the same way and taken care of in the same capacity and respected, of course.
So guys, so the 4 types of abuse are neglect, physical abuse, sexual abuse, and emotional abuse. And over the next few chapters, we'll go over those in details and explain everything about those.
Sure.
From the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Service Administration, they found that more than 2/3 of children have reported at least one traumatic event by the age of 16.
2/3 is a lot to consider the population. Children make up 1/3 of the population about. So for 2/3 of that 1/3 of children to be abused or experience some form of trauma before the age of 16, that's a lot of children that we should be helping more. And that's what I'm hoping we can do with this, because the children are our future, and they should not be pushed into an adult situation or pushed into a different lifestyle at such a young age.
Yeah, they should.
So this is also saying under or by the age of 16, which goes from newborn into the teenage years. So that's a lot of time for children to grow and develop, and for the trauma to possibly stunt their development, stunt their education, stunt their growth in general. We need to do better. The other stat that we found comes from a community called Small Talk Children's Advocacy Center, and they advocate for age-appropriate messages and conversations with your children about personal space and body safety that start as early as the age of 3, to help them grow and develop and learn boundaries for themselves and learn boundaries for being around other people, because at this day and age, you can never really be too careful.
So yeah, we want to be able to have these conversations with children at this early age, because it's important for them to know when to what to tell when to come to talk to their parents. Like, when is that time to come to talk to them? We've seen a lot of child abduction cases, and a lot of children go missing.
Absolutely.
And we just need to have, is it just important to have these conversations with children, not to talk to strangers, not to go with anybody just because they have candy, not because just because they have a pet or animal. And we just have to let children know that it's people out here. Like, you have to, everybody just have to be aware.
Especially the younger the child is, because one of the things that we encourage with our children in the hospital is that they don't share personal information with each other, because it's easy to say, hey, this person's in the hospital with me, we must be going through the same thing. However, sharing that personal information without knowing where this child comes from in terms of background, in terms of environment they come from, can put yourself, it can put your children, it can put anybody in a dangerous situation. Yep.
We just want to stress that it's important to have these conversations with children at this early age. So we're going to talk about ways to prevent child abuse and neglect. And one way to prevent child abuse is by enhancing parenting skills to promote healthy child development, meaning that we just have to be more aware as a parent as to what's going on with your child. You have to be involved, which is one reason we started this podcast, is to help parents be able to use things so that they can promote healthy child development, because it's specific things and there's certain ways to do things to promote healthy child development, because the key word is healthy.
Absolutely.
You have to be able to understand whatever mental challenges that your child will face. You have to be able to understand the disabilities, if your child have those specific disabilities or those special needs. So you have to be able to do research to get background on anything, to just be able to help your child, because it really just starts with you as a parent, because you're the first person your child go to.
Yeah. And we want to encourage, as a parent, we want to encourage finding your village, because
Definitely.
it shouldn't always fall on one single parent or one set of parents. This brings us into our village. This is why we encourage the village, because a lot of these things tend to seem like they fall on the parent alone. And it can seem like that a lot of the time, because
it shouldn't.
yeah, it absolutely shouldn't. It can feel like, oh, well, I'm the mom, I'm the dad, or I'm the caregiver, and this ultimately reflects on me. But that is why we are here as future parents and future teachers, caregivers, psychologists. We want you to know that it takes a village, it takes a team, and the future falls on every one of our hands. And the best way to help prevent child abuse and neglect is to start early. It's to enhance that village that you have and solidify your team. Showing your child that, hey, if mom or if I am not available to you, here is this person that you can also trust. And showing your children that they can trust you.
Yeah, because it's important. We learned that it's important to build trust. Like, that's the important part in relationships with children and adults, is trust. Like, they need to feel like they can trust you to be able to come to you. So if you have those trusting support system, that can be able to help you raise your child.
So one of the things I want to talk about is the different memories that we have from childhood that shape us into who we are. So I think it's important to share some positive memories and negative memories to show that we aren't alone, and we all go through different things and remember things differently. A positive memory that I have from growing up is actually just having my sisters around. I grew up in foster care, which is a story for another time, of course. Stay tuned. But growing up in foster care, because of past neglect and abuse that I faced at a young age, it was important to me to have my sisters there with me, because not often do you see foster children grow up with their biological siblings. So to be fortunate enough to stay with my sisters throughout my entire foster care experience was a heaven sent for me. It was a blessing, because it's it's hard to relate to people growing up and already having a disadvantage of not having your own biological family with you to raise you, but also just from having past experience of abuse and neglect, to having my sisters there with me despite those past experiences was a blessing for me, because I knew that regardless of what was going on in my life, I had someone to relate to, and I had someone that could support me if I felt like I had no other support in a given background situation with foster families or in schools, anything like that. So that was a positive memory I had. Um, so yeah. What about you, Angie?
Yeah, similar to you. I basically uh like was blessed to be living with my being raised with my siblings as well. Like being raised with them, like we just grew a bond where we can just go to each other for everything.
Mhm.
One thing I want to note that is that we wasn't raised by our mom or our dad. Our grandmother and grandfather took us in when we were little, and
Oh,
so we was with them ever since then. And I was we are fortunate enough now that to know that our grandfather was the one who was just like bring my bring my grandkids here. They need to be raised
yeah.
here, and we're gonna take care of them or whatever. That's one positive memory. And another thing about that is that um, one thing I can always remember is being in a stable, uh, a more so stable environment, and that's kind of environment that you want to create with kids, having that a stable environment for them to be able to grow mentally,
Absolutely.
physically, and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
So from my childhood, my grandmother didn't move us around a lot. We stayed in the same house basically our whole. She still lives there now, so we
Oh,
basically stayed there
wow.
our whole hood. We didn't really move bounce from school to school, which was a blessing because we had to start over a lot, meet new friends, meet new people.
That's
I
amazing.
mean, that could possibly be a negative thing, but it's still positive because we didn't have to, pick up our life and start over somewhere else and stuff like that.
Yeah,
So
you
that's
weren't.
definitely a positive memory because for real, honestly, a lot of kids don't. A lot of kids or a lot of people now can't say that when they were a child. I only stayed in this one house. They'll tell you I went
Yeah.
to this school, this school, this school, and that school, and yeah. So
That
I,
alone can be a
it's a
stressor
blessing.
for children.
Definitely moving from school to school, and it just could stress children out as well. Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. Do you want to jump into the negative memories from childhood, or do you want me to go first?
No, I can do negative memory. So
Ooh.
since we talked about our positive memory, we have to talk about our negative memory now. So, and one of my negative memories would be something that people don't really mention or people don't really notice a lot, and that's really verbal abuse. And what I mean by verbal abuse is really talking. It's really like being belittled. So you saying like talking down on somebody, calling them names, basically,
Mm-hmm.
and when I was getting older and um we start to get older, develop our own personality traits and things like that. um my my caregiver would basically say things that would hurt my feelings. I'm not going to sit here and blame her for anything because sometimes we might not think that things hurt other people's feelings, or we might not think that things can affect that person. And like as a child, I feel like children hear and listen to everything. So I feel like
Absolutely.
when I was a child, I feel like I heard and listened to everything because I never, didn't really speak up as much. So when I was being called names or I was being, saying that I'm gonna be just like my mom, when
Oh,
that's a whole
wow.
different story from a whole different time. But being things like that is just definitely had took like a toll, definitely on my personality, because I can tell now as like in my self-esteem wise, how that like being verbally abused can really affect my self-esteem, and
Yeah.
that's a lot to handle when you as you get older, because as you get older you start to you start to look for certain things like love and just I don't know, friends, new friends and stuff like that, and
Of
not being able
course.
to, if you have those like issues with those social issues, then it just affects you
I think it's
mentally.
interesting. Oh, sorry, God.
No, go ahead.
I think it's interesting that you said that you are also making the connection to how it affects you in an adult life, being verbally abused or being experiencing verbal abuse. Um, because as an adult, it's hard, but imagine being a child and experiencing that. Like
Right.
if you have difficulty and notice these difficulties as an adult, imagine what child you is thinking and what child you had felt or is feeling in that situation back then,
Yeah,
because
and I feel like that's where a lot of my emotional, be not be emotional, like I want to say like emotional, trauma come from. Like I don't know how to really deal with some of my emotions sometimes, and it might come out, a little wrong. So, those things, how you treat your child when they are a child, it will definitely show in their adult life. So that's why it's important to start here, start um, talking to them, help them develop those skills that they need, those social skills that they need, things like that.
so
And it's your turn.
yeah, I'll piggyback on that a little bit
Okay.
and talk about um emotional abuse in the form of manipulation. I feel like as parents, guardians, caretakers, it's easy to want what's best for your child. Um, but it's not so easy to separate that from what you want your child to do, because we think as parents and guardians that we want what's best for our child in terms of providing themselves a good life of wealth and fortune and property. But what we often don't consider is, or I won't say we don't consider, but what we often might overlook is whether they'll be happy with this much wealth, or whether they'll be happy with this 6 bedroom, 6 bath house with a farm in the backyard, and whether that's something they actually need to find fulfillment in their lives. Um, I had a lot of experience with that with my biological mother. An experience that I remember vividly with my mother is actually her talking about my father to me. Growing up, when I did live with my mother, she and my father had separated when I was young, and she didn't really give me the option to get to know the man or get to know where I came from, anything about him until I was much, much older. But she cast this shadow over relationships with people that I was interested in because she didn't like them and she felt that she was doing what was best for me without giving me the option, giving me the opportunity to really get to know him or get to build that relationship that I wanted at the time as a young child. And so having that in mind, I think it's important as parents and guardians to really sit with your child and encourage them to express themselves and express what they need or want, and give them the option to explore those things, and give them the option to say, hey, I think this would be good. Hey, I think this would be bad. And even give them the option to fail. I think it's important to, yeah.
They have to give
it's part of growth. It's part of growth to sit here and experience failure and experience heartache to a certain extent. Obviously, we're not intentionally trying to hurt our children.
Yeah.
But by giving them the option to say, hey, in my case, hey, you want to meet your dad? Let's go meet your dad. And giving me that opportunity to learn and see that I am a valid person. To learn and see that my thoughts and opinions are valid, and that I have a support system as a child to fall back on and learn from, instead of putting a blocker in front of me and telling me, hey, this is a no for me. Because ultimately, parents and guardians, let's face it, your child is going to experience it with you or without you, but it's going to happen, and it's much better to have them experience things and have you to fall back with, instead of having some random stranger or future significant other take that from you, take that from your child, or possibly do more harm than good. So, with all that being said, it's important to know that talking about this with other parents, other guardians, caretakers, and talking about this with your children is a hard conversation. And the only way to really make it easier is to start the conversation and not be scared, because it protects your children in the long run. It protects you in the long run. Absolutely. And it builds. It's important. We cannot stress this enough. It's important to build and continue to build and work on this relationship with your child. So that way, from infancy to their adulthood, you want to be able to grow and develop and change with them, because we're all changing, we're all growing. Even you as a parent or guardian, you learn from your child, you learn from your environment, you learn from your village. We're all here, we're all on the same page. So having these conversations shouldn't be scary. They should be filled with information, should be filled with encouragement, and filled with change. One conversation might be, hey, apples are red. And then tomorrow they might be, hey, apples change to green too. But look, we learn together, we grow together. Having those simple things and reminding your child that, hey, I am with you, I am learning with you, and we are doing this together. So we're nearing the end of the episode, and we want to leave you with a quote to get you through the rest of the week and keep you encouraged to bond with your child or the child in your care. We want to keep you encouraged to continue working, continue learning about yourself, and to continue learning about your child. So with that being said, Angie, take it away.
My favorite quote is by Stacy Tasha, who is a dancer and artist. She quotes that we worry about what a child will become tomorrow, yet we forget that he is someone today. So let's start today with your village. Let's start making your village today. Thank you guys for tuning in to Two Village Girls. I'm Angela.
And I'm Serena.
And we'll see you guys next week.
Bye.